Hello, everyone. Welcome to another session of Careers Plus Plus powered by DN69 in collaboration with AIT Entrepreneurship Center. Glad you can be with us today. I'm your host, Jennifer. And in this session, we'll talk about team dynamics, people, power, culture, and survival with integrity. The purpose of this workshop is to help participants understand that workplace success is not only skill-based, it is also psychological, relational, cultural, political. This session equips you to read environments accurately, work with people effectively, protect mental well-being, build credibility, and influence without losing integrity. In the past weeks, we've explored career pathways, jobs, higher studies, research, entrepreneurship, and starting small. Now, we enter a universal reality. Wherever you go, you will work with people. Most career pain doesn't come from technical difficulties. It comes from workplace dynamics. We are live here at AIT Entrepreneurship Center, and with me today, of course, the co-founders of CareersPlus Plus, Mr. Bhargav Mohandas and Professor Dieter Trau. But to start off, I would like to welcome Mr. Bhargav to start our Pathfinding Workshop Session 11, Workplace Psychology and Team Dynamics. Welcome, Mr. Bhargav.
Okay, thank you so much. Thank you so much. And I believe we all have adjusted our schedules to this new timeline. So a very, very warm welcome to you all. So we already have touched base upon almost all the career paths and the different dynamics associated with that. So now we are moving towards the general things that irrespective of wherever we go, whatever path we choose, we need to be mindful of these aspects. So I think many of us already have submitted those forms where there was a term called workplace dynamics. So the ones who got very high score over there, you will know why you get that. And the ones who might have not get that much, okay, we will know what we need to do to get higher score out there. So let's get on, let's go forward with the thing. Yeah. All right. So what workplace psychology really means? So we had been talking about conditioning our minds as well as implementing the same in different career paths so far. So if we just combine all of them, I believe we should have the answer by now. So what is workplace psychology? Basically, the first and foremost, how do we behave when we are under pressure? Doesn't have to be in any particular shape and form, whether we are a research oriented person, whether we are doing some business, whether we are having some jobs or whatnot, but how do we behave when we are under pressure? That's one of the very key aspects. Then how the teams, because we have to work as teams, and how do we form trust? Then it's very essential also to understand and become relevant towards the power, because how power operates within an operation. And of course, a lot of time, certain decisions we have been discussing quite a few times in terms of culture or tradition playing some role in our decisions. So that also is very equally important in terms of workplace psychology, to understand that how culture of that particular workplace can shape the decisions. So workplace is not just a system of tasks to perform, it's a system of human with the human sensitivities. Now a lot of time when we grow as students, we sort of have this understanding that if we are talented, the talent can take us forward, But while that is being absolutely true, but at the same time, talent alone is not enough. Because a lot of time, very highly talented people, they may also struggle because a lot of time They might come across misunderstood expectations. A lot of time we may ignore certain rules which are not written in stone, but they do exist in a workplace. A lot of time, suppose we come with mindset that since we are talented and we are doing the best things to our best of ability, so we should not be mindful that much of for our relationships. Because a lot of time people come across, with statements like, "Oh, we are here to work, we are here to succeed, not to make friends." But then again, we do have to mind relationships as well, so we have to manage them well. And a lot of time we just assume that, okay, since we are trying the best to our best of ability, so fairness, it equals reality. So if there's fairness, so we should get our fair share. But the very famous proverb in the world that says life is not fair, and so does a job place. So basically workplace. So if we expect things to be absolutely fair, it may not be a right expectation to have, because the very essence of our understanding of fairness, it differs from people to people. So what is fair in our eyes or in our own terminology may not be the same with the one who's in the position of power to make decisions in a workplace. So let's not have that sort of limitations. The day we can get rid of that kind of limitations, a lot of struggle actually gets reduced. So that's why let's not have the misperception that if we are really talented, really skilled in something, of course that helps us to get hired or get on board with an initiative. But definitely, whether or not we thrive in the process, the workplace dynamics, it decides. Now, we just mentioned about some invisible rules, right? So, okay, like what kind of aspects like that we really need to be mindful of when we are in a workplace, right? So these things, no one would speak out openly that much. Of course, it may come, there time to time, but certain aspects which are required to be absolutely mindful, one will have to be absolutely mindful in order to get the best results, no matter wherever we are. Number one, reliability. So whenever we are in a workplace, we should be reliable, meaning that people around us should feel that if something comes to us, then the job would be done. So that reliability is essential aspect. Next goes the communication and tone. So how we communicate, because a lot of time if we think that, okay, we are really talented, we absolutely know what we are doing, we definitely know that the way we are doing is the best way around, so that gives us the right to be a bit arrogant or to be a bit aggressive. So that's how we can communicate whatever way we think we should. Well, we have to think about it twice, because a lot of time we might be absolutely confident because we know the thing 100%, but the people around us, be it upper layer or the lower layer in the hierarchy of the system, they may not understand 100%, which is perfectly all right, because nobody knows everything. Not everyone knows everything. So that's why, in spite of the fact that we might be doing the absolutely correct thing, we might be having the best knowledge on that subject matter, but still the way we communicate, the tone in which we communicate should always remain very, very friendly, and it should not give an iota of feeling to the listener that we are arrogant. You see, we're again coming back to the very basics that we had been talking from the very beginning. Next thing that ones have to be mindful in a workplace is responsiveness, meaning how well do we respond to the things that put to us. It's somewhat relevant to reliability, but it's a bit more specific aspect that forms part of reliability. Reliability is what? That, okay, if something is given to some individual, by and large, based on the experience from that person, okay, the team feels that, okay, the person is reliable, so they feel positive about it. But responsiveness is a facet that enhances that reliability. For example, suppose someone reached out to us from the part of the team in the workplace that something is needed out of us within this time frame. And we are working very sincerely, very diligently, and with maybe utmost, utmost level of decency or with no iota of arrogance, but we keep it to ourselves. We are not responding it out. We are not relaying the information. So if someone might have said, okay, can you get this information, get this report done in next 2 days? And when we receive it, we thought, yes, of course, why 2 days? We can do it in 1 day, and we start doing it, but without responding anything. That can also create some unnecessary negative energy to the person. So that's why I deal with it. Okay, we responded, okay, yes, it'll be done within the due course in time, so that everyone remains, have their mental peace. So that's responsiveness. Number 4, ownership without excuses. This is one aspect we've been discussing throughout this whole journey of CareersPlus, that whenever something is given to us as a responsibility, we either take it, or if we have a problem, that means we think that we are not in a position to do it honestly, we have to be honest about it. So once we take a responsibility, we have to take its entire ownership without excuses. If it's successful, it's actually success of the team. But if it fails, the person who took the ownership of that responsibility should own it, the failure. So success, share with all, but failure has to own up. So that's why, that's another thing that is very essential when we talk about, creating value of self in the workplace. Then emotional maturity, it again is relevant to the things that we discussed already a lot of time. Like people use emotion over objectiveness. So a lot of time, that something that has already been done maybe up to a number of times, but due to certain reason, it has to be done one more time to make it happen, make it finally conclude the whole thing. And at that point in time, rather than cribbing about, oh, we've been doing it for 15 times, 20 times, just do it. Let the whole thing finish. And then, of course, maybe whatever the grievances we might have, we can always put it as a part of our post-execution assessment, right? But not like, creating unnecessary negative space by, throwing some tantrums. And last but not the least, always respect for hierarchy and the stakeholders. Because a lot of time, we might come across a situation where we might know the thing much better than our superiors, much better than even maybe the stakeholders, meaning it can be a shareholder in the company we work and whatnot. But no matter what, we really need to respect the hierarchy, simply because on that one particular thing, we are better equipped or better, we have better knowledge than the others, doesn't make us superior by default. So we have to keep in mind that if a hierarchy has been set and the people who are higher in that hierarchy than us, there must be some reason. And the day we find that, okay, we are in a situation where there is a hierarchy where people who has no value, honestly, more than us, and we just have to listen to them just for the sake of listening. We just change that venture. If it is a business venture, we just look for a new financier. Maybe if it's a job, we just go ahead and find a new job or a new department within the same organization, and so forth. So that's why, like how professional we are, they're measured in these 6 basic aspects, that how we behave. So if we are reliable, if we communicate very well without any arrogance, with clarity with all the peers and our superiors, then if we are responsive, if we own all our responsibilities, if we do have emotional maturity not to throw tantrums whenever we have some small hiccups, and if we respect the hierarchy, by and large, we should be having reasonably good time at our workplaces, irrespective of whether it's a job or it's our venture or it's some research work. It doesn't matter. Now, we mentioned at the very beginning about culture, right? That sometime we need to respect the culture of that workplace. So what is culture? So sometime maybe when we come across the promotional document of a company, we might see some nice slogans, but those slogans are not actually cultures. Those are more of like marketing gimmicks, more of like things to put forward. But if once you enter an organization, or when I use the word organization, it covers all the three career pathways. So we need to understand that when we enter an organization, meaning what? Like we have stakeholders from different fragments, basically. So we need to understand the culture, meaning from the people, from the people at the position of power in that organization. Number one, what gets rewarded? Because the reward value in different organizations are different. In certain organizations, maybe only reward is seen in the monetary benefits. In some organizations, reward is seen as the growth of the organization, even though monetary benefits might come later. In some cases, what kind of perhaps philanthropic activities we are doing, it depends, right? So we need to understand that the thing, that organization that we get into, what is seen as a reward. Let's put it this way. Suppose we have a venture where we received like I'm talking from the entrepreneurship viewpoint. Suppose we enter a venture where we need to do fundraising, and we got a fund from a source who are more of a philanthropic in nature. But then as soon as we get the fund, we need to get a sense of what is the version of reward from them, right? Or the vice versa, that we want to do something which is more of like service, while staying self-reliant, but the money that came from a source, it only needs profit. So the thing is that we need to understand what is the virtue of reward, right? Second, we also, once we get into so the moment we understand what is rewarded, we exactly know what may get ignored. So sometime we might be focusing on the monetary thing, not focusing much on the value proposition, but maybe the real thing is the other way around. So once we know what is rewarded in that organization, we should also be able to understand what may get ignored. And then what are the aspects that might get punished? And again, this punished, it's a very strong word, but it actually resembles, it's sort of like a metaphor for the situation where we might get our fingers burned, for trying something. And then again, it depends on the organization, that virtue of punish might be different, right? Some places you might get punished only if you do something that's legally not permissible. To the extent in certain places where you might come across certain stakeholders at the position of power that if their ego is not satisfied, that also might make us liable to get punished, right? Then in the organization, so from that punish, we should be able to know what are the aspects that people in that organization are afraid of. What do they fear, right? So once we know these 4 aspects, then the 5th is automatically, then we know that, okay, the leaders, not the supreme leader, not the ultimate one, but the leaders who's driving that venture, what all do they tolerate to keep on carrying on leading the ventures in that particular organizations. And then finally, we should have absolute clarity on how the decisions are made in that particular organization. Because decision making is complete. Some organization might have absolute transparency where every single decision is properly documented, presented, and approved by a statutory approval body. Some organizations where decisions might be simply hinging on only one individual. Both are, I'm not saying which is good or bad, maybe both are good. Both has their own merits and demerits, but we need to know how does it work, right? And some even we might come across certain organizations where decisions are hinged on only one individual, but they just fake some documents to make it look like, like it is very well documented. So we just need, whatever it might be, but we just need to know all these aspects, So this defines the culture of that organization. What would be rewarded, what is better not, touch, What are the things which might even put us on the harm's way? What are the aspects people are afraid in that organizations? What the long-term leaders in that organization must have been tolerating to come this far. And then finally, how the decisions are finally made. So if we know all these aspects, then it's easier for us to judge that whether we are fit or not in that organization. Or in fact, if we really want to be fit in that organization, what adjustments we have to do internally. Now, once we get to that, then automatically we need to understand the different team roles, the natural one, and where we fit in. So any organization will need teams who has builders or executors, the one who does the execution. Then planner and organizer who plans the entire thing. But while doing the master plan, we need some specific analyst or thinker who makes the specific strategies. Definitely we would need some communicator or connector who does this connection within the teams, within the different stakeholders. And of course, at times we need some external support as well. So we just really need to see that, okay, whenever we are in an organization, whether all these roles, they do exist or not, and where do we best fit based on our natural alignment, based on our strength mapping that we have, based on our experience. So once we have that aspect sorted, it's always much easier to survive within that organization. A lot of time conflicts arise when roles are very unclear. So that means sometime maybe one person is sitting on two roles while some roles are not being addressed by anyone. A lot of time when ego overrides the function, because maybe the person who's like this again goes back to the thing that we discussed moments back about emotional immaturity or having arrogance in the way of communication. And a lot of time if we have like unclear roles with ego overrides, it's very essential, natural that the credit and responsibility might get misaligned. So this is where teams completely fail and everyone goes into an absolute negative space. So that's why, we just have to have absolute clarity on these aspects to ensure that as a team, the results are positively delivered. So that's why, we had the tag saying teams fail when the roles clash or remain undefined. Now coming to the most important part of it, the power. Because as we already mentioned, it's very essential that whenever we are in an organization, it's very essential to understand where the power is concentrated. Because a lot of time, we might be a bit blinded with our own passion. See, a lot of time, people enter an organization with a lot of passion to do a lot of things. And since that passion is there, and a high sense of conviction is there that, whatever we are planning with this amount of passion, so we are doing the best for the organization. So we just should go ahead and, just focus on getting it done and be open about it. But sometime if we try that, but our efforts are going in a different direction where the real power of that organization is concentrated, we may have serious trouble going forward. Okay, because it's and this actually explains this, the expectation of fairness in any aspect of life, in any walk of life, is actually futile. Life is not fair, so is a workplace. So that's why it's very essential that we understand where the power lies, right? So if we are doing a job, so we have to understand where the power lies in our company. If we are doing like our own business venture with support from external finance, okay, for that financier, where the power lies, So it's as simple as that. So let's try and understand what is power. Power is not always loud, because a lot of time when we get along, we will see some individuals in organization who keeps on talking too much. I will do this, I will do that. Okay, that's some noise. Some of them may be true, some of them are simply noise. So whatever comes out as loud within an organization, let's not get misunderstood, let's not get sort of like how to say, tricked to think that that is power. No, that is not power. If we observe very carefully, power is, number one, the ability to influence the outcomes. So we have to see that what are the outcomes that's coming out of this organization, and who's influencing those outcomes, or which system is, so whichever center is influencing those outcomes, that's where the power is. Number two, who are the people who has access to the decision makers? The people, or whatever we call it, people, team, system, whichever has a direct access to the decision makers, whom the decision makers, believe the most, that's where the power is. Sometimes it may not be someone in the organization. A lot of time in big corporates, the decision makers like to listen to their hired external advisors or so. So number three, who has the control over information? So when I say the word control over information, meaning, like I said right at the very beginning, that sometimes anything that is loud within the organization, let's not take it that seriously. But who has that ability, that who can not manipulate, but control, meaning, so a lot of information comes to that source, but that source has the ability to filter it and decide which part of information should go to decision makers, which part can remain filtered. So the ones who has that control over information, they have the power. In the same line, the ones who has the control over resources, right? The available resources. Sometimes we may see in an organization that one individual in the hierarchy, he or she might be higher, and there is someone sitting in the same office, might be number two in that organization. But when it comes to controlling the resources, when you need something, the number one guy might say, okay, I will do it the normal process, I'll fill in a few forms to request these resources, but the number two guy might be just making one phone call and get this thing done. So then, so that's where the ones who has control over resources in the organization, they do have the power. And last but not the least, like in case of control over information, control over narratives. Meaning, information is one thing, right? Once the information goes to the level, to decision makers, then the people who can influence the narrative, because sometimes one information may create different narratives depending on what is our mindset, how we think, like I think, for example, like one of my company, has a just to put on, take it on a lighter note, by the way, but one of my company has the word touch at the end of it, which was actually done with a clear mindset that it was a joint venture company with a highly acclaimed accounting firm. So it was understanding that, okay, when their and our services touch the core of the people, we give the best service. So with that mindset, we use the word touch. But we came across questions that, does it mean it's massage parlor or similar services? So you see, the same information can give different narratives, but the one who can control that narrative has the power. So that's why, we need to understand when we are in an organization, what power is. So basically, the one who can influence the outcomes, the one who has this access to the decision makers, the one who can control over the information that's floating around, the one who can control the resources in an organization, and most importantly, the one who can control the narratives, that has the power. So that's why power is not always tied to the title. Sometime, the influence matters it's much more than the designation. So that's why a lot of time, if someone steps into an organization, that okay, this person is director, that person is manager, I better speak to that person and blindly, but who knows that that manager might be a direct confidant of the CEO, who can have a better control of all the other things. So that's why it's very essential that when we get into to the power dynamics of an organization, we look into these aspects. We have to observe very minutely to get this understood. All right, and if we're doing that at the very early stage of our career, then okay, let's not go all the way to the company's decisions. Let's focus only on the department. If we step into the department as a starting engineer or something, let's see on that particular this department who's controlling all these aspects. So the power lies there. So we should always be on the right side of the power to be to have a sustainability in the workplace over there. So yeah, so this is what I just put a bit of this already. So what happens if we ignore power at times? So if we ignore the power, so as I mentioned, we might unknowingly challenge the wrong person. We may simply we might simply think that this manager is lower in the hierarchy than this director. So since I'm talking to this director, so this manager I should not be worried about. But it just might come out to be wrong. Okay, a lot of time, we might simply bypass informal gatekeepers, because sometimes, like I mentioned moments back, if we don't understand where the power lies, so there might be someone talking to whom could have made things much easier, but that person's influence is not very clearly visible. So we just bypass them, then realizing maybe 2-3 months down the line that, having talked to that person, thing would have been done in a matter of couple of days, Then a lot of time, if we don't know, don't understand these nuances clearly, we might misread some silence as agreement, because sometimes we come across situation where we might say something where the listener would just listen to whatever we say with a smile, thinking in mind that how to figure out ways to, put a stop into it, but we might just, get the other way around. Then, like I mentioned already, that we simply may assume that fairness operates automatically, but as I already repeated twice, that expecting fairness with with no conditions implied, I think it's very hard to get in any walk of life. And automatically, if we actually ignore power and start getting the opposite direction, so it might be very likely happening that we might just get excluded from all the decision making process without even realizing why it happened. It happens. So that's why we better figure out this skill, how to actually understand where the power lies, and assuming that we are okay with that power metrics, figure out ways to fall in that line to assure that we can be influential and at the same time productive in that organization. So it's very interesting to think that if we don't understand power, power will understand us, meaning that sooner than later systems will move around us, meaning system will move on with or without our necessity, meaning our importance in the organization go down to the extent that one day we might become completely, dispensable. Decisions would always be taken without us. And a lot of time, if it happens that maybe certain things where officially we are liable to be responsible, but decision has been taken by someone above us in the hierarchy, by direct liaison with someone lower than us in the hierarchy, it might happen. And all these things, and when these things start happening, then certain narratives can be created which may define us wrongly. Not correct, but some wrong narratives might start defining us before even we get a chance to define ourselves. So when all these things happens, of course, That means that the time has come for us to separate our ways from that organization, but the kind of negative energy that brings through this kind of happenings are really damaging, you know. But at the same time, let me be very clear that understanding power does not mean manipulating it. I'm not talking about manipulating power. It's very essential for us to understand so that we are aware of that who influences the decisions, and then how we can create a trust on ourselves, you know. The thing is that, like I said, once we understand where the power is concentrated, and if you're okay with that, then we have to figure out ways that, okay, how we can align ourselves with the system. But if you're not okay with us, then we better, you know, figure out an exit from that particular organization, you know, rather than trying very hard, go all the way to, you know, very deft, and then one fine morning suddenly realize that we were just, you know, swimming a wrong tide, you know, where we would have never reached the destination that we want to achieve. So that's why, you know, so this awareness actually protects us from that negative energy. Now, certain common workplace characteristics. This slide is more for the ones who are about to start your career, you know. So there is a high possibility we might encounter, you know, certain different characters. One is a certain high performer with very low empathy, because we come across such peers who might be very well perform, who might be having very high efficiency. They perform very well, and automatically, you know, that actually creates a sense of self-awareness and self-importance on them, and they might have no empathy for their co-workers, you know. But at the same time, we might find a friendly gatekeeper too, you know. So I'm just trying to put it up like what may let us feel bad, at the same time what might comfort us. So we may also find characters like who are a very friendly gatekeeper. There are certain people in organizations, the moment someone get in there new, so they tend to be the you know, friend, philosopher, and guide from day one. So yeah, so whenever that kind of character approaches us, so we have to be mindful. And yeah, with all characters, we really have to judge the authenticity and honesty in them, you know. Then we might find someone above us who might be very insecure micromanager, meaning that no matter whatever you have done, that person might still not be trusting you, and, you know, because of their own insecurity, and then try to micromanage you. So when we come across that kind of situation, well, I think positively we should try and figure out where those insecurities might have come, and try to do the best version of ourselves to get that person the comfort against those insecurities. Meaning, because we don't know, right, that person might have got some bad experience by trusting some wrong subordinates in the past, and as a result of which he or she might have become a micromanager like this. So if we can give them that comfort, you know, that again all the way goes back to one of the beginning slides where we say that what are the key characteristics we should have, right? Then another character we might come across is the silent competitor. So this person you might feel as your best buddy in the workplace, who literally shadows you at everything. But without your knowledge, that person might be actually, you know, like sort of like finding all your positivities and negativities at the same time, so that the positive aspects he or she can acquire, and the negative aspect, whenever the time comes, maybe expose out to get some brownie points. So that actually relates to the next one, the credit taker, because it comes across quite a bit in workplace where, you know, out of naivety, we might end up sharing everything that we do with our friends, and maybe the credit goes to someone else. And there are also another type of characteristic we find, the safe players, who tries to avoid conflict no matter what, even if that conflict is a necessity to get the righteous decision. So, you know, so that's why none of them are good or bad. They all generate energy, either positive energy or negative energy. So we should be able to feel it, So when we feel that whosoever is creating a positive energy amongst us, very good, try to be with them as much as you can, but then again, being mindful of all the possible traits there, and better not get tricked, or better not get uh, misused, so that they can take your credits, or they can be a silent competitor, and eventually expose you out, things like that. And at the same time, if certain people, certain characters within the workplace give some negative energy, well, at this, even then, be kind to them. We have to try and understand why that kind of behavior is coming. And if we find a way to avoid that, if we find a way around it, so we should be able to do that. So that's why it's important to observe the patterns and adapt strategically, so that that strategic adaptation we can take as a layer of protection. And by far the most precious aspect, as we termed here as the real currency, is trust. Because we may have everything, but if there is no trust within the organization, sustainability is very hard. So trust is built when we deliver what we promise to. So that's why I think this again, you see, going back to one of the original traits, what we said, never ever over promise at a workplace. So let's try to be realistic with our own promises and deliver. That creates trust. Similarly, about this responsiveness, as I mentioned earlier, communicate early. So whatever we have, we better communicate right away if we have the tone, if we have the information to communicate. Because a lot of time, if we keep in our mind, and then at the last moment when we think that the problem is beyond any control, and then only we communicate, then we lose some level of accountability. So whatever apprehensions we have, we should communicate right away. Own mistakes means that's again going back to own responsibility. As I mentioned, if we take a responsibility and that particular endeavor is a success, it's a success of the team. But if it goes wrong, since we own the responsibility, we have to own the mistake. So always own the mistakes, So that actually adds to the trust quotient. Then next is, it's a natural thing to have in any workplace, gossip. Try and avoid to the extent you can. Sometime when I say avoid, meaning, of course, if someone is gossiping about someone else, and that person happens to be your boss, if you just put it like, oh, I don't get part in gossips, so I just leave. That might be seen as an act of arrogance, right? But how you can avoid? Just keeping quiet. If someone even wants to, indulge you to get into the gossip, just resist. Just simply say, oh, I have no idea about this. So, I go by what you say. You know the best. That's even better, right? So that is very essential, because these gossips eventually don't give us anything tangible, right? It's just some unnecessary, sort of like, how to say, some unnecessary feel good, which has no real practical meaning. And respect boundaries. So I think whenever we are at the workplace, we always need to know the boundaries in terms of to what extent we should go close to an individual and where we have to respect the boundaries. And then that's very essential in order to understand each of the co-workers, because sometimes every individual is not the same. For certain people, certain aspects which might be very straightforward for our own self, it may not be the same for the other. So that's why about self, okay, you don't have to have any boundary. Whatever you think you want to reveal out, let's get on with that. But the thing is that simply because you revealed out something about yourself, if you expect the same from the person in front, that is not a right way to behave. That is not a right way to get the trust. Okay? And a lot of time, trust is broken when we surprise people negatively. So surprise people negatively meaning what? For example, I'm just giving one example, like suppose two individuals already had a discussion about, so they're attending a meeting, say the next day, and they have a discussion the evening before out of trust that, okay, tomorrow this is what we are going to discuss. And there had been some part that maybe, the person A is not in agreement. But on purpose, person A abstained to tell this to person B during that evening private chat, thinking that I better put it in the meeting in front of the bosses so that I get some brownie points. That's a negative surprise. Because then the person B, after that, he or she would never ask person A for another private discussion. Actually, person A didn't have any intention to undermine person B, but just thought that, okay, because it just might came during that conversation, that when person B was saying about something, person A simply might think that, oh, okay, this is also a point, but why should I give this comment now? I better do it in front of the bosses so person B, out of trust, when next in front of the bosses, was explaining that the person A might just put it back, yes, that is fine, but I think about A, B, C, D, E, F, G. And looking at the bosses with anticipation that the boss might like it. Yes, the boss might like it on that day. But person A will lose the trust of person B. So better not do this kind of tricks, because this won't give any sustainable brownie points that helps overall growth. Next, overpromise. We already mentioned about it, that we just promise as much as we think we can deliver. Shift blame. It's again opposite to owning mistakes. And a lot of time it happens, like people disappear under pressure, that whenever a lot of stress comes, people might simply put it to their subordinates and go off on sick leave. So when people do things like this, automatically, the trust quotient goes lower. So both trust and distrust, they compounds like interest. So we have to be very mindful of these aspects when it comes to get, because with trust, we can survive in any organization if the people have the right set of trust upon us. Now the conflict. Well, like conflict is again a bit of a strong word, but it's natural in any workplace. Conflicts can happen. It's a normal thing, and it's not at all being personal. Like whenever there is a conflict of thought, conflict of ideas, conflict of execution process, it's bound to happen because we're human and we tend to have different way of thinking, right? So first of all, we have to learn that these conflicts are a normal occurrence, and it has nothing to do with the persons involved. It's never been personal. So that's why we have to understand these conflicts, where it come from. It may come from some misaligned expectations. It may come from some confusion on the roles. Mostly conflicts occur from communication gaps. Because a lot of time the communications were not done properly. There had been maybe gaps in the information shared. And well, stress and ego also create conflicts, because sometimes maybe when, okay, ego is setting aside, ego is ego. I think we don't have to explain too much, but sometimes stress, we may not, react to something when we are in a normal state of mind as compared to when we are in a stressed state of mind. So sometimes we might be under stress, and some people might have put something across, and we might simply disregard it because we're stressed out at that point in time, could not think properly. So this happens, we cannot avoid it. But amongst the conflicts also, some of the conflicts are healthy because that eventually helps the organization. So what are healthy conflict? When in a conflict, we give issue more importance than anything else. This is the issue, how we resolve it. We might have conflict over the way to do it, but we can discuss and try to resolve. And that's the next thing. If we address the issue in a conflict and then seek a resolution, that how we can resolve it so that we can move on. But the toxic conflicts are which are like individual based, that okay, a conflict came up on maybe item A, and then we started shouting at that individual on item B that he or she might have failed 2 years back. It happens sometime, we get a conflict, we get converts into a verbal altercation, and that might take the whole conversation into something different. And then when it, you know, in a way that one party tries to, seek dominance over the other in a conflict. So when that happens, that's very toxic and it absolutely doesn't serve any purpose. But having said that, conflicts are normal, and when they happen, don't take it personally. Try to convert it to a healthy conflict to get a resolution that benefits the organization. Okay? So that's why, we put a disclaimer that avoiding conflict doesn't create peace. At times, we have to have conflict so that we can create some good resolution, But the thing is that it creates a silent resentment. So that's why, but the thing is that toxic conflict is something when we get into a space like that, the best way is that, okay, let the aggressor feel that he or she has won and we just, step back. Now, okay, so the boundaries and self-protection. So we briefly touch base upon the boundaries, but some of the very clear-cut professional boundaries, okay, I just mentioned about the personal ones moments back, but professional boundaries, let's be very clear. First, the commitments, it has to be absolutely clear on what are the commitments, and at times, if necessary, it can be even done, on a written basis, so we can create a protocol. Nowadays, I think many organizations have even SOP to make sure that there is no gap on the commitments. Then if something has to be refused due to a very valid reason, that refusal should be respectful. It should not be in a manner that we undermine whatever was told and we had some demerits. No. Even if that might be the reason we have find some demerits in that instruction, but the refusal still should be very respectful with proper explanation that why we feel that it cannot be done. Then the third thing is one other boundary, because we do have vulnerabilities in anything. We are vulnerable. We are a human being, right? But having said that, simply out of overtrust on some co-workers, let's not overshare the vulnerabilities, because sometimes we never know that can be taken over. So when it comes to the boundaries, it's very essential that we know our own vulnerabilities, but that doesn't mean that we keep on, blow a trumpet over that. Only thing is that keep it as a part of our self-awareness and make use of it when we act in the team. Then, of course, protection of the reputation is very essential. So that's why, that boundary cannot be breached by the others. So if anything that's breaching that boundary of protection of our self-reputation, that has to be, even if at the cost of creating a conflict, but we have to respond back. And I already mentioned that earlier in the commitment thing, that keeping documentation absolutely clear wherever necessary, and in fact, as I mentioned, in the modern time, a lot of time, the SOPs are actually focused during that aspect as well, proper documentation of every single occurrence within an organization. So basically, boundaries are not a way to show arrogance, but they are a tool to create sustainability. So to sum it up, basically, which I mentioned briefly, we can just put it like 3-layer response in any situation which we might feel difficult, whenever something goes, we feel not good. So the first thing what we need to do, observe the facts, not some assumptions based on, some self creation or manifestations. So we just have to observe the facts on hand. And then to get clarity, if necessary, need to seek more information, confirmation or document evidence, And once we observe the entire facts associated and get that clarified with, substantiable evidences, then only we respond in a very calm, professional and strategic manner without putting any emotional overturn into it. Okay? So reacting is emotional, but responding. So that's why, let's not react, let's respond. So that's why if we just react without putting much, process behind it, it's an emotional outburst, which may or may not work. More often than not, it doesn't work. But if we responded professionally, that can be far more sustainable. And well, some basic survival strategy for the beginners. So let's focus on achieving these aspects very consistently. First, like deliver some small wins early. So whenever, what I mean by small wins means whenever a responsibility comes to us, let's deliver to the best of our ability, preferably maybe before time, you know. And then in our workplace, let's try and have at least one strong ally, a person, preferably someone senior, whom you can give the comfort that you can be the suitable support ally to that person, and vice versa, right? Definitely, as we discussed about understanding the power concentration part, so fully understand the definition of success to the manager who's managing us, right? Create a process that we can communicate the progress of our own work very visibly, right? And as I mentioned already, that stay neutral to gossip and politics. Avoid it absolutely, you know? The places wherever you cannot avoid listening, but at least abstain from speaking, all right? And that, so once we create some consistency at the very early stage of our career, that automatically, you know, helps in cutting down a lot of negative energy from the process. And having said that, it's very natural to have certain toxic, you know, experiences at the workplace. So certain signs to realize whether it's toxic or not. So first thing, the first item to be alerted is that if, you know, it has become a normal occurrence to be treated with disrespect, you know. If you come across there is a normal blame culture, anything goes wrong simply because we are the youngest around, the blame is shifted to us, you know. Anytime we are pressurized to work very hard but with no clarity, simply like, you know, we are used as a dumping ground, that okay, do this, do that, and you started working very hard on that, suddenly next day something else come up, that okay, whatever was told to you yesterday, stop it for the time being, do this now, you know. So, and then next one, if you ask questions about why I'm doing this without any clarity, you know, simply following your orders, and you got some, when I say use the word punishment, it can be even a in a reprimandment, you know, it can be in like a sort of like any harsh word is also, it's like equal to punishment, right? For asking rightful questions, if we get some more toxicity, that's a pure indication of sort of like toxic culture. And then repeated credit theft, meaning that the job, the work that we do, someone senior up there takes the credit repeatedly. And a lot of time, if the leader wants to get work from us simply out of fear means, it's like coercion is not just physical coercion, right? It can be simply like if an indication is given that okay, you don't do as I say, you know, your HR reprisal is going to be, your annual reprisal is not going to be that good, so you'll be devoid of promotion and things like that, you know. So those aspects are definitely, you know, clear indication of a toxic work culture. So that's why when it becomes that toxic, that place also doesn't deserve your loyalty. So that is the time to take a call and move on. And ethics and integrity under pressure, one very important thing to highlight is basically what is integrity. It's just that, you know, because a lot of time I think we see them as literal words. So what is integrity is basically doing the right thing even when no one is watching. Okay, so all the time, whatever right thing we do in an organization, we want it to be, we want it to be noticed and applauded, but actually the integrity is that anytime we do anything, it should be the right thing to do, you know, whether irrespective of someone is watching us or not, you know. Then whenever we come under pressure, we should not lose our senses and we still be able to, you know, present ourselves calmly and quietly, not just not just in the whims and fancies of someone else, and push ourselves. And just to survive, like if we go the wrong way, that okay, sometime it happens, right? Like okay, I mean, just speak this much, put the accountability and so on, and you're free of this harm. So if something like this happens, well, I mean, ethics is that we refuse to tell a lie simply to survive, to put someone else on the harm's way. And of course, integrity is that if it's really too much, it's knowing when we can walk away with respect, with our heads held high. So automatically, I think at the very beginning, one of the sessions where we had this discussion, right, that for growth, we don't have to cease to be ourselves. We can still grow without becoming someone else whom we dislike, right? If we grow with that kind of compromise in our life, that growth is not worth attaining, because it's not going to be sustainable in the long run. So that's very essential that we maintain the ethics and integrity part, even under pressure in any organization we work or we establish ourselves. So to conclude the reflections today, so let's ask ourselves, what kind of workplace helps us to thrive? What kind of behaviors can drain and stress us? What boundary do we need to straighten up? What professional habit, each of us should improve, So this awareness, again, a self-awareness is a good layer of protection, so that, we prepare ourselves better. So let's focus on what Careers Plus can help on aspects pertaining to today's topic. So if there is any difficulty, we step into a workplace and there is any difficulty in reading people or culture, right? So Careers Plus definitely will help each of us in terms of understanding this pattern, identify such invisible rules at the early stage of the career, and then adapt without losing the authenticity. Then if we come across situations where there is a like we really want to express ourselves, but we are afraid that if we express it this way, will it be a wrong conflict or termed as an arrogant communication? So definitely, on such a situation, Careers Plus can help in terms of structuring your, expression of your feeling. Then a lot of time when we feel absolutely unheard or undervalued and share that problem with Careers Plus, we can definitely help to get out of that situation by strengthening, by providing the way to strengthen the professional presence. And how do we do a proper, communication at the right time, to build a very systematically developed credibility within the organization. Then if there is a risk of burnout, because whenever all these aspects happen and there is a high risk of burnout amongst the individuals, so definitely Careers Plus can help by consulting you on how to build the sustainable boundaries. How do we manage the stress with proper strategy, and how we protect the mental well-being, and the ethical aspect. The last bit that we discussed, right? So obviously, Career Plus won't teach how to play the politics, but it will help for all of us to see the things with clarity and how to act wisely to get rid of such aspects that can give us some tension on being ethical or not. And the stock keeping units that we will develop together during the second semester with all of us, relevant to today's course, are Workplace Survival Guide, Team Role and Conflict Tool, and Ethics and Compliance Basics. So that's pretty much for the session today. Thank you so much. So I'd like Professor Dieter to add his share of thoughts. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Bagab. So maybe let me reflect on a few things that I have seen, in the past, or what you should maybe not do. So what I have seen often is that people react impulsive if they
Yes.
if they come under certain stress or something
Yes.
like this. So and then they impulsively send some emails or things like this. So this is something you need to control yourself, you know. So first, don't do that. Think about it first, and be always, you know, calm, and you have to keep your professionalism. In
I
this.
think social media post also is included,
Yes.
right? I mean,
Yeah.
too many things are happening in the world, but that doesn't mean that we, you know, get on board and start taking sides and making comments as well, because that also impacts professionally.
Yes, yes. So yeah, this is one thing you should yeah, control yourself. Don't be impulsive. Stay you know, professional. You may just sleep over it, and on the next day, you know, you may think a little bit different, and your response would be much more better. And another thing that I have often seen is when people are in conflict in some company, or they are people are compared. Never compare yourself with non-performers. I have this seen often that people say, "Hey, I am better than a person X," but person X may be a low performer, and you should never compare yourself with a low performer. You know, instead you should clearly say, what are your achievements? Because, you know, if you compare yourself with a low performer, it doesn't make you a high performer. It only makes you somebody, you know, maybe a little bit higher than a low performer. So it's no point doing this. So I have seen that very often. So instead, you know, very clearly say what's your achievement instead. Yeah. So yeah, those are some reflections I have.
Okay. Would you like to? I think both of us, both you and me, I think both of us have this experience, right? Maybe at times. I also had in the past that not recognizing, or, you know, out of our passion, sometimes I think we also made not the correct recognition of the direction of the power at times, right? And I think that's one of the things very important, that like whenever we're in an organization, to understand where the power lies, and if at all we cannot align ourselves with that link, then we better separate out. Sometimes it happens like so you know, in our entrepreneurial journeys, I think both of us have come across certain situation like that,
Yeah.
which definitely, I mean, eventually makes us much tougher than we had been, you know, where we might come up seeing some unimaginable, you know, assertions by people about us, which we had no idea whatsoever. But then again, so sometime if not dealt properly, then we end up, you know, spending a lot of time in the court, like I did 2 weeks back. So I think those aspects are that is very essential as well. Yeah.
Yeah, so sometimes people may develop in a way or in a direction which you not expect. But if it's happened,
it
have to
happens. It
react.
happens. I think. I mean, nothing is good or bad. I mean, see, everything, like I said, right? Everything successful, it's a success of the team. Anything goes wrong, it becomes, you know, liable to the accountable person. Likewise, any success that we have in our life, that's good, that's a bonus. Anytime anything bad happens to our life, that's a good lesson, you know, because so that's it, the moment we see it that way, things become much simpler. Yeah.
Okay, I think then we can invite questions, right?
Yes,
let's
Give
do
it
that,
back to Jennifer.
You invite the audience. If you have any question, now is the time to ask.
Communication and tone can be dismantled when working with people from different countries and cultures. So how are you putting your best foot forward in these multicultural workplace environments?
Well, I think that's a good question. Two things. First of all, there are some basic grounds when it comes to behavior, right? So if we remain honest, truthful, and very mild in our demeanor. I think that is acceptable to any culture, right? So we also don't have to change that. Okay, this culture demands too much of aggression, so here we speak in an aggressive mode, and here. So I think if we just remain true to our cause, right? So basically, we remain absolutely honest. We remain absolutely to the point to what we want to, what we want to present, and we remain respectful to the listener, right? So I think that's acceptable to any culture. Any culture would expect. The only thing is that some culture, by the way, I'm not talking about regional, but it's some individual culture or some organization. Sometime they might take your softness as a naivety or some weakness, and then they might try to impose them on you. But then we have to just act accordingly. We just have to tone ourselves accordingly while remaining absolutely how to say, respectful. So that's why being honest, being honest, being to the point, and being respectful, that serves all cultures. Yeah.
And transparent.
Yeah. Yeah.
Any more questions from the audience? So while waiting, I have a question to both of you. Anyone can answer. How do you differentiate between being assertive and being aggressive in a professional setting?
So you want to answer first, or you okay? So assertive and aggressive, right? Well, see, I mean, we can be assertive and aggressive without sounding one, right? So when we are talking about being assertive or aggressive, I'm just putting in the same line. We just need to put the goal in a manner, right? Goal or deal, whatever we call it, right? Like, for example, I just give you one simple example, like, because it's easier to give an example, right? Like in my previous organization where I used to, even now also we do. So when we make investment on projects, right? Investment on projects to build solar rooftop where we sell the electricity to them, right? So I came across one such project. I came across when I was meeting the client. So they were always used to have questions to the contractors to whom they pay and who would go and install, right? So they ask questions like that. Oh, how do you assure that the inverters will not, be out of order? How do you assure that panels will run this, that? So I just told them that I think this question I have asked myself already, right? Because you are not paying me for this equipment. You are paying me for the electricity that I'm going to produce. And if these machineries don't work, how do you think I can get my money? Right? So obviously we have to be mindful. So here you see, I asserted what we have done. I might be a bit aggressive in the approach, but because I also mentioned that, okay, you want to have a comment on the discount that I'm giving, I think let's have a conversation on that. But at the same time, I did it in a manner, with all due respect, that I believe they didn't feel offended, So I think that's why, you see, I mean, the thing is that what we want to put across, I think it goes everywhere, even when we work. If we want to assert some culture or some creativity or something to the team that is working with us, we have to be assertive. We have to tell them clearly that what is the expectation out of them, but at the same time, if we guide them through the process, if we show them the necessary respect that we have to give it to them, like Professor Dieter mentioned, transparency. So that the guiding through the process is the transparency. So if we do that, I think assertiveness and aggressiveness can still be achieved without, looking very arrogant, or what do you call it, or without looking aggressive, like that. Yeah, because aggression is for the objective, not on the people. So we show the aggressive on what we have to achieve, but not on the people. So we can still talk to the people very politely. But of course, if our polite, deliberation might be taken, oh, he's just You know, all the time he's asserting things with a smile. So maybe sometime we have to forget to smile to make it happen in the real sense. Yeah.
So we can be assertive without being aggressive. That's the point, yeah?
Without being aggressive in our demeanor. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. You have something to add, sir?
Yeah, I think it was already said. Yeah. Mm. We have some more questions? Or
have
you
questions?
can, for the online audience, you can also ask directly or type it in the chat. Of course, we would prefer you asked
Yes, yes.
directly.
Or if you have any experience about power dynamics, you can also share with us so we can also learn
Yeah,
from you.
yeah, sure, sure, sure. Because some of us have already good amount of experience already, I believe. Yeah. And by the way, one more thing. I think the things that we present here, if anyone has any alternate views, please feel please feel free to put that forward to us, because it's about learning mutually. So we believe that we have a lot to learn from you as well. Yeah.
I think Prajakta has a question. Prajakta, go. Go ahead.
Because you answered this already, that how to handle disagreement, like if you are disagreeing something, how to handle that.
Disagreement, how to handle disagreement.
No, I
Between
think
you and boss?
disagreement is very easy to handle as long as we are honest, right? So disagreement it comes almost every other day. But the thing is that in that thing we have to see it objectively, right? So basically, whatever is the topic, we should be able to get first the tangible outcomes, then the ethics part of it, and the practicality part of it. That three things. So the thing is that disagreement come on certain topics. So I think these three aspects we can evaluate, right? So whoever has the better outcome, so we have to go by that. Then the disagreement is gone, right? Disagreement sometimes cannot be resolved when people take things emotionally and ego takes over everything else. Then it cannot be resolved. But if it is with some proper outcome, it is resolvable. Yeah.
Is it possible to grow professionally while maintaining a strong ethics? Like we want to be ethical in our works and everything, but sometimes it's not possible.
No, I think, the thing is that I personally am quite optimistic, and that is why we have started CareersPlus Plus, because we want to create a community who works the most righteous way and at the same time reaches the epitome of success, right? The success that is, what do we call it? That is in the common language, right? Success means what? We are financially independent, we can make a difference to the society. So that is possible. That is possible. See, the thing is that it might make life a bit harder. We cannot deny that fact. So it's on us. Whether or not we agree to take that hardship. So, personally for me, I cannot tell too much into detail because a lot of things are sub judice, but I can tell you one thing. I simply had to choose between accepting someone when they say, accept that, you're under, showing the boots, you're under there, and rest of your life, be very happy about it. Then no problems will ever come. I had a option to choose between that or facing consequences. I agreed to face consequences to the extent that I had even police sitting in front of my house and picking me out for a night, and even so the things like that. But the thing is that I chose the hard way, and I still believe, I did the right thing, because at least I don't have any blemish in my mind, and I can sleep very well in the night, knowing that, like I'm doing whatever I think is right. Yeah. So it depends. Hardship will come. It's on us whether or not we are ready to take it, right? So if we are ready to take it, but the thing is that one purpose of Careers Plus Plus is what? It is clearly that share all the knowledge and experience, good, bad, ugly, we share together so that the new generation doesn't have to face these hardships, because definitely had someone been there to tell quite a few things, be it to myself, be it to Professor Dieter, a lot of things we would have done a bit differently, so that that negative energy quotient would have been much lesser, right? Because every time we come across a negative energy, it reduces the growth quotient, right? If you see the way the world is happening now, right? It's full of negative energy. So Careers Plus, we are seeing as a very noble attempt that, okay, even if we can bring some negativity off the world, because thing is that the way we are grouping ourselves, training ourselves, working together as a community, so if that helps people to get some negativity off their life, so I think that helps, that makes a big difference. So in today's time, if we want to stay absolutely ethically correct, to the T, and very strong in whatever we believe, keeping in mind without an iota of ego, the moment we think that we are not right on something, accept it right away. Well, it is a bit difficult, but still doable, But of course, with certain, what people use the word compromise. With certain compromise, maybe the so-called materialistic, tangible growth is easier. But whether or not we have the real peace of mind, that's a different thing, right? So it's doable, but not very easy. But it's on us to what extent we can stress ourselves. To what extent stress and stretch ourselves.
So on that note, I think no more question from the audience. So I think that's it for us today, and we will meet again on Wednesday for our session 12. And our topic for next session will be about emotional intelligence and resilience. So we hope that you join us again on Wednesday for another session of Careers Plus Plus, powered by DN69 in collaboration with AIT Entrepreneurship Center. Thank you all for watching today. Thank you,
Thank you.
Mr.
Thank you.
Bragat. Thank you,
Thank you.
Professor
Okay,
Dieter.
thank you all
Thank
for
you,
joining.
everyone.
If you found this content useful, please hit like and subscribe our Careers Plus Plus channel. Thank you.